Eli Harper had never imagined that one day he would leave Earth and step onto a world where humans were rarities, treated almost like curiosities. He had spent most of his life in hospitals, not in the cold corridors of interstellar politics. Yet here he was, aboard the sleek transport ship Orion's Edge, hurtling through light years of empty space toward the Zerati. Homeworld. The mission had sounded simple enough in the recruitment email: caretaker for Queen Lysera. Prestigious, important, and entirely routine. Routine. Eli couldn't imagine what could be routine about caring for an alien monarch. Still, the salary was impressive, and the chance to see the galaxy firsthand was too tempting to refuse. As he stepped off the ship onto the planet's landing platform, he was immediately struck by the alien architecture. The structures were tall and flowing, like living things frozen in stone. Colors shimmered subtly under the twin suns, creating a haze that made everything feel almost dreamlike. The air was breathable, but there was a faint metallic temps that reminded him he was not in Kansas anymore. Eli's guide, a small Zerati aide named Kryn, led him through the corridors of the royal palace. Kryn's movements were precise, elegant, almost serpentine, and his pale blue skin glimmered faintly in the light. "You will find the Queen. Different from your expectations," Kryn said. His voice was smooth, melodic, almost hypnotic. Different, yes, Eli thought. That's an understatement. Finally, they reached a massive door carved with strange symbols that seemed to shift as he looked at them. Kryn paused. "She is aware of you. Step inside." Eli's stomach tightened as the doors slid open. Inside was a chamber unlike any room he had ever seen. The floor appeared to float slightly above the ground, and light poured from unseen sources, bathing the room in soft, warm tones. At the far end, seated upon a platform that seemed both throne-like and organic, was Queen Lysera. She was breathtaking. Taller than any human, with a body that seemed sculpted from liquid crystal, Lysera radiated elegance and power. Her skin shimmered with a soft, shifting hue, colors he couldn't name dancing across her form. Her eyes, large, luminous, and impossibly intelligent, focused on him immediately. "Eli Harper," she said. Her voice was both musical and commanding, filling the room without speaking loudly. "I have heard about you," Eli swallowed. I'm honored to meet you, Your Majesty." Lysera tilted her head, studying him. "Honored? Yes. But I am not easily impressed. Let us see if you are capable of understanding what I need." Eli blinked. "Understanding what you need?" "Yes," Lysera replied. "This is not a task of simple care. My needs are usual. You must observe, anticipate, and act. Sometimes before I even speak." Eli realized then that the warnings he had been given were incomplete. This was not merely medical care. It was something far more complex. Over the next few days, Eli tried to learn the rhythms of the Queen's life. He attended her meals, which were strange mixtures of substances humans couldn't identify but which she consumed effortlessly. He learned to read her subtle expressions, the flicker of her eyes, the slight tension in her posture, the almost invisible pulse of her aura, to understand when she was content or restless. It was exhausting. Humans were straightforward creatures. If someone was hungry, angry, or tired, they said so. Lysera, however, communicated in layers of signals that Eli had to decipher. One afternoon, while adjusting the temperature in her chamber, he noticed something that surprised him. The Queen was humming not a melody he could recognize, but a low, resonant sound that seemed almost like she was speaking to herself. Eli remembered something Kryn had said. She appreciates attention to detail, and humans can provide that in ways we cannot. Curious, Eli asked, "Your Majesty, is there something wrong?" Lysera's eyes met his, and for a moment, the weight of her gaze made him feel as though his entire being was under inspection. Then she smiled, a gesture that was both warm and mysterious. "No, human. But your curiosity, it is unusual. Most who serve me simply follow orders. You observe? You think that is valuable." Eli felt a strange mix of pride and fear. Valued by an alien queen? That was not something he had expected. As days turned into weeks, Eli began to notice patterns in Lysera's behavior. She seemed fascinated by small human gestures, how he adjusted a chair, how he remembered subtle preferences, how he reacted to unexpected problems. One day, a minor electrical fault caused the chamber's lighting to flicker. While Kryn hesitated, Eli instinctively assessed the system and restored it within minutes. Lysera watched silently. When the light steadied, she said, "Human, you act quickly, without hesitation. This pleases me. You have potential." Potential. The word echoed in Eli's mind. For what? For surviving her attention? For understanding her desires? He wasn't sure, but he felt a spark of something new pride. Yes, but also a sense of responsibility. Then came the first challenge he hadn't anticipated. One morning, Lysera requested that he join her in the observation garden, a space filled with alien plants, each one delicate and strange. Some moved subtly, responding to sound and motion. "You will care for this garden as well," she said. "The plants are connected to me in ways you cannot imagine. If they suffer, I suffer." Eli blinked. "Plants connected to you." "Yes, they respond to emotion, to energy, to thought. Humans rarely understand these connections, but perhaps you will." The task seemed impossible. How could a human care for plants that reacted to feelings he could not even measure? Yet Eli tried, speaking softly to them, adjusting water levels, monitoring temperature and light, and observing subtle reactions. To his astonishment, they began to respond, opening and closing in patterns that suggested curiosity and recognition. Lysera observed from a distance. "You are learning," she said. "Patience, attention, and thoughtfulness. These are your gifts. Do not underestimate them." Eli realized then that her words were more than praise, they were a lesson. Humans, she seemed to think, had qualities her own species lacked, qualities that were valuable in ways beyond physical strength or intelligence. As the days continued, Eli's understanding deepened. He discovered that Lysera was not merely a ruler, but a being who craved connection, understanding, and challenge. She tested him with questions that had no right answers, observed his reactions to moral dilemmas, and sometimes simply watched, silent and inscrutable. One night, after a long day of adjustments, observations, and subtle lessons, Eli sat in his quarters staring at the alien stars. He felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. This job was nothing like he had imagined. It was harder, stranger, and more rewarding than anything he had ever done. And yet, there was a growing sense of unease. He knew that he was only scratching the surface of the Queen's desires. There was something beneath the surface, something no training or preparation had prepared him for. What did she truly want? And was he capable of giving it to her? For now, Eli could only continue observing, learning, and adapting. One thing was certain. Being human in this alien world was a challenge, but it was a challenge that, perhaps, he was uniquely suited to meet. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he could not shake the feeling that Queen Lysera was watching more than his actions. She was watching him. Eli Harper had begun to feel at home in the palace, but home was a strange word for a place that shimmered with alien light and whispered with unknown energies. The more time he spent with Queen Lysera, the more he realized that caring for her was not simply about meals, medical routines, or comfort. She demanded something else, something far more subtle. It started with the small tests. Lysera would ask questions that seemed innocent but were anything but human, she said one morning, her luminous eyes narrowing slightly. If a creature faces two dangers, one certain and one uncertain, which should it confront first? Eli blinked. The certain danger. Usually, to survive. You address what is immediate. Lysera's eyes shimmered. Yes. But what if the uncertain danger holds far greater consequence? Could you risk the immediate safety for a chance at long-term survival? Eli hesitated. Humans were not used to thinking like that. It depends on the cost, he said carefully. If the risk is too high, it's smarter to protect the present. but sometimes taking the risk is necessary. The Queen's lips curved into a slow, approving smile. Your thought is human, unpredictable, yet cautious, that is. Rare. It was in these moments that Eli realized something profound. Lysera was not merely testing his intelligence. She was observing his judgment, empathy, and values, things that could not be measured with machines or calculations. Humans, she seemed to understand, had qualities that were difficult to predict and even harder to replicate. Over the following weeks, Eli began to notice other signs of the Queen's fascination. She was drawn to human improvisation, the way he solved unexpected problems. Once a containment unit for one of her bioplants began to fail. Alarms sounded and Kryn froze, unsure what to do. Without thinking, Eli assessed the situation, recalibrated the energy flow, and stabilized the plant before anyone else could act. Lysera watched silently from her throne. You do not panic, she said afterward. You adapt. That is human. Admirable. Eli felt a mix of pride and fear. Pride because he had succeeded. Fear because he realized the Queen was watching everything, not just his actions, but the decisions behind them. Then came the emotional tests, far harder than anything technical. One evening, Lysera asked him to accompany her to the observation garden again. The garden had become a place of quiet reflection, but tonight it felt charged with energy. Alien plants pulsed faintly, responding to the Queen's presence. Eli, she said softly, I want you to touch the heart of this place. He hesitated. The heart, the energy, she explained. The life that flows through all of it. Can you feel it? Can you respond? Eli placed his hands on a plant that shimmered like liquid silver. He closed his eyes and tried to sense its rhythm. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he felt a faint thrum like a heartbeat. He adjusted his movements to match it, speaking softly, offering reassurance. The plant responded. It seemed to lean toward him, opening delicate appendages, as if acknowledging his care. Lysera's eyes glimmered with what Eli could only interpret as approval. Few humans can do this, she said. You understand? Not only with your mind, but with your heart. That is why I observe you. Eli realized then that he was beginning to see why she had chosen a human caretaker. His species had something her own could not replicate, genuine empathy, paired with adaptability. But understanding her world was not just about skill or emotion, it was about communication. Humans spoke in words. Zerati often spoke in thought, subtle gestures, and energy flows. Eli had to learn to notice the tiny cues, the shift of a limb, a flicker of color, the barely audible resonance of a sound. One day, while preparing a meal for the Queen, Eli noticed her staring at him with a strange intensity. You hesitate, she said. Why? I'm thinking about the balance of flavors, Eli replied cautiously. I wanted to please you. Lysera tilted her head. Interesting. Humans believe taste is simple. You treat it as an art. That is admirable. You care. Eli's heart raced. He was only cooking a meal, but she saw it as something more. Everything he did mattered because of how he approached it, not just the act itself. As the days turned into weeks, Eli found himself growing more confident. He learned to anticipate her moods, predict her needs, and even sense the subtle changes in her energy. And yet, no matter how skilled he became, there was always an air of mystery. One evening, as the twin suns set and the palace glowed in warm hues, Lysera summoned him to her private chamber. The room was quiet, filled with soft light and the faint hum of energy flowing through the walls. I wish to show you something, she said. Eli followed her, curiosity piqued. She led him to a chamber he had never seen before. It was filled with alien devices, glowing softly with unfamiliar energies and holographic projections of stars and planets. This is the library of life, she explained. Here I observe civilizations, record their behaviors, and study their evolution. Eli's eyes widened. It's incredible. You've cataloged entire species? Yes, Lycera said. But humans? You are different. Even though you are young, your species shows resilience, adaptability, and curiosity. Qualities that many more advanced civilizations lack. That is why I am intrigued. The word sent a shiver down Eli's spine. He had not come here seeking admiration, yet he realized that the Queen saw something unique in him and in all of humanity. But why me? He asked. Why choose a human to serve a queen of your species? Lysara studied him carefully. Humans are unpredictable. You solve problems in ways we do not. You care in ways we rarely understand. Your species has potential. Eli felt a surge of pride. Humans, he thought, might be small in numbers and young among the stars, but perhaps their greatest strength was their ability to adapt, to connect, and to persevere where others might fail. And yet, with that pride came unease. Lysara's fascination was not entirely comforting. Observed with the intensity of a predator and the curiosity of a scholar, it was as if she were reading not only his actions, but his thoughts, his intentions, and perhaps even his fears. That unease grew when Lysara began to test him in ways that went beyond observation. She would present scenarios, moral dilemmas, and challenges that required judgment and creativity. One day she simulated a planetary crisis, a storm that threatened her people, and asked Eli how he would respond. He thought quickly, improvising solutions using limited resources, protecting as many lives as possible while minimizing damage. Lysara watched silently. When he finished, she said simply, "You have the mind to survive, the heart to protect. That is rare among humans and among my people." Eli realized then that his presence mattered not only for her comfort, but for the survival of her people. His human qualities, empathy, creativity, courage, were assets that even the Zirti valued. Days later, as he sat in the observation garden watching the alien plants respond to the Queen's subtle energies, I reflected on his journey so far. He had learned to observe, to act, and to understand in ways he never imagined. The palace no longer felt alien. It felt like a world where humans could shine if they dared to try. But beneath the admiration and learning, one question lingered. What did the Queen truly want from him? Care? Loyalty? Something deeper? Something he could not yet name? Eli did not have the answer, and perhaps he never would. But one thing was certain. He was no longer just a human caretaker. He was a participant in something far greater, a test, a connection, and an opportunity that could shape not only his life, but the way his species was seen in the galaxy. And as he looked at Lysara, observing him with those luminous, intelligent eyes, he felt a strange certainty. Whatever her desires, whatever challenges lay ahead, he would rise to meet them. Humans were not the strongest or the fastest species in the galaxy, but they had something no other could match: heart, ingenuity, and the will to survive and understand where others could not. For the first time, Eli felt that being human was not a limitation, it was a gift. Eli Harper had spent weeks navigating the strange rhythms of Queen Lysara's world. He had learned to anticipate her needs, interpret her subtle signals, and even respond to her emotional energy in ways that most Zirati attendants could not. Yet a nagging question remained. What did she truly want from him? It became clear one morning when Kryn arrived with urgent news. "Human," Kryn said, his voice trembling slightly. "There is a council meeting. Some members question your presence." Eli's stomach tightened. "Question my presence? They doubt humans' worth. They believe your species is too unpredictable, too weak to serve the Queen effectively. Some even suggest your removal." Eli's mind raced. He had trained, adapted, and learned. Yet no amount of skill could erase the fear that he might fail at the most critical moment. Later that day, he was summoned to Lysara's private chamber. The Queen's form shimmered with tension, her usual calm aura flickering slightly. "They doubt you," she said plainly. "Do you understand?" I do," Eli replied. "But why now? Why care about their doubts?" "Because," she said slowly, "your presence is more than service. You challenge their assumptions. You show them possibilities they have forgotten, Eli realized then that he had become a symbol, not just a caretaker. He represented humanity itself, young species with potential, courage, and creativity. Now under scrutiny by one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, the council meeting was a spectacle. Zerati delegates, each taller than a human and radiating authority, gathered in a vast chamber where energy flows, traced patterns in the air like living light. Their voices, a harmonic blend of thought and sound, filled the room as they debated his fate. Eli stood quietly, unsure whether to speak or remain silent. Lysera watched him closely, her gaze a steady reminder that he had an important role to play. Finally, one delegate spoke, his tone sharp. "Queen Lysera, why maintain a human among us? They lack our experience, our strength, our understanding of consequence." Eli felt a flicker of fear but held his ground. Lysera raised a single appendage, signaling silence. "Human," she said. "You may respond." Eli swallowed and took a deep breath. "I'm not your strongest or fastest. I can't process data like you can, and I don't have the same experience. But I can observe, adapt, and care. I can understand needs that may be overlooked. I can think creatively and act quickly when the unexpected happens. That is my strength. That is what I bring to this world." There was silence. The delegates whispered among themselves, unsure how to react to a human who spoke with such clarity and confidence. Lysera's eyes gleamed. "Observe, my people," she said. "See what humans offer. Their value is not in muscle, nor in tradition, nor in predictability. Their value is in adaptability, courage, and heart." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then one delegate, older and more measured than the rest, stepped forward. "Perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps there is merit in qualities we cannot quantify." "Ada!" Eli exhaled silently. He had survived the test, but the true challenge was yet to come. Later, Lysera brought him back to the observation garden, where alien plants pulsed gently in the evening light. The air was warm, the twin suns casting long, soft shadows across the chamber. "You have proven your worth," she said. "But now I must reveal the deeper reason for your presence." Eli's heart raced. "The deeper reason?" "Yes," she said. "Humans are rare, fragile, and unpredictable. Yet you survive, adapt, and create. I have observed countless species, and yours holds a potential that others lack. I did not simply want care. I wanted understanding. I wanted to see if a human could rise to the challenge of a being unlike themselves. You have." Eli struggled to comprehend her words. She was telling him that his presence was not just about serving her needs. It was about what he represented for all of humanity. "Your species," Lysera continued, "has qualities that even we, advanced as we are, often overlook. Empathy, creativity, resilience. Courage that persists even when logic fails. You have shown me that humans can be more than observers. You can be partners. You can be essential." Eli's chest swelled with pride. He had come to the stars as a human caretaker, uncertain of his place. Now, he realized that humans were seen in a way few other species could imagine, as beings capable of contributing something unique, something irreplaceable. But admiration alone was not the Queen's ultimate desire. She stepped closer, her form shimmering softly. "There is one final test," Lysera said. "A challenge that cannot be solved by skill alone. You must show understanding not of actions, but of intent. Not of duty, but of connection. Can you do that?" Eli nodded, though he did not fully know what she meant. She guided him to a chamber that had been sealed for centuries. Inside were projections of the galaxy, showing planets, civilizations, and events in real time. Lysera pointed to a distant star system facing ecological collapse. "You must guide my people in preserving this world. Do not fail. Its fate, and the fate of its inhabitants, rests partly in your hands." Eli studied the projections, analyzing the possibilities. Resources were limited, the environment fragile, and the inhabitants unaware of the danger. Most species would panic, freeze, or impose solutions without understanding. Eli relied on his humanity, empathy, observation, and improvisation. He instructed the Zerity delegates on subtle interventions, introducing energy shields, adjusting planetary climates, and guiding native species to restore balance. When a sudden storm threatened to undo his work, Eli quickly adapted. Reallocating resources and using creative solutions no protocol had suggested, Lysera watched silently. When the crisis was resolved, she said, "You have succeeded where logic alone would have failed. Your adaptability, courage, and insight are proof of what I observed. Humans are remarkable. Your species is remarkable." Eli felt a surge of relief and pride. For the first time, he understood what she truly wanted, not simple care or obedience, but partnership, understanding, and trust. She had chosen him not because he was the strongest or smartest, but because he could think, feel, and act in ways her own species sometimes could not. Later, as they returned to the palace chamber, Lysera turned to him. "You have proven humanity's value, Eli. You have shown me what makes your species special. But there is something more. Personal. You have gained my trust." Eli swallowed, aware of the weight in her words. "Your Majesty, I am honored. But I only did what I could. I only tried to understand." "That is precisely what I desired," she said softly. "Understanding, connection, insight, not just action, but intent. You have given me that. You have given me humans at their best." Eli felt a strange warmth, a sense of accomplishment he had never known. He realized then that his journey had not only proven his worth, but the worth of all humanity. In the eyes of an alien queen, humans were not weak, fragile, or insignificant. They were creative, empathetic, courageous, and indispensable. Days later, the palace hummed with a new sense of balance. The council no longer questioned his presence. Delegates watched him with a mixture of respect and curiosity. The queen, once inscrutable, now regarded him with a quiet appreciation. And Eli, for his part, had found a place among the stars not merely as a caretaker, but as a representative of human ingenuity and heart. One evening, he stood in the observation garden, looking at the twin suns setting behind alien flora. Lysera approached, her luminous form gliding effortlessly. "You have done well, human," she said. "But remember, this is only the beginning. Humanity's journey among the stars is just starting, and I will be watching." Eli smiled. "I wouldn't have it any other way." And as he gazed at the alien world around him, he knew one undeniable truth. Humans were not just survivors in the galaxy. They were innovators, thinkers, and companions capable of bridging worlds. And in Lysera's eyes, that uniqueness was finally recognized and valued. The challenge had ended. But the journey both for Eli and for humanity was only beginning.